Hello and welcome to Deep Dive. I'm Mitali Mukherjee. On Saturday, the 4th of December, villagers in the Mon district of Nagaland were killed after an army operation to reportedly track down insurgents took a tragic and horrific turn. While six of them died on the spot, two others have been admitted at the Dibrugarh Medical College and Hospital in Assam. Seven villagers died in the second round of firing, taking the toll of civilian deaths to 13 that day. While a police FIR has said soldiers had blankly opened fire, Union Home Minister Amit Shah said in a statement to the Rajya Sabha on Monday that the vehicle was signalled to stop and was fired upon after it tried to flee. However, accounts from survivors are contradicting that version. The Indian Express quotes survivors saying, "We were not signalled to stop, they killed us directly, we were not trying to flee, we were just in the vehicle." The incident has touched a throbbing nerve on a much larger issue, AFSPA, or the controversial Armed Forces Special Powers Act 1958. The Nagaland cabinet has said they've decided to ask the government of India to repeal the act, and that call has found wide support not just in Nagaland but in other parts of the region where AFSPA is still in place. This goes beyond organizations and politicians. Joining me to talk about that incident and what the larger outcome of this could be is Patricia Mukim, journalist and editor of Shillong Times. Patricia, thank you for joining in and speaking with me. I wanted to first get a sense and a handle on what the atmosphere is as we speak in Mon and indeed across the state and the region right now.
Well, it's a picture of gloom and doom, and you have to listen to the voices coming out from Nagaland, voices that sound completely desperate and humiliated. And there's a sense of hopelessness that this also shall pass and nothing will happen because similar things have happened in the past. There has been a clamor for revoking the AFSPA, the Armed Forces Special Powers Act, and then it just dies, it dies out because people have limited, what should I say, attention span. The media has a limited attention span. And if the media is not going to pursue this relentlessly, then I don't think, nothing much will happen.
There was also a pretty sharp reaction, Patricia, and this is across political parties, to the statement that was made by the Home Minister in the Rajya Sabha. It seems to be at odds with what some of the survivors, as reported by a leading newspaper, Indian Express, indicated was actually the sequence of events.
Mhm. See, the Home Minister says, and I think he's been tutored by the army to say that they fired because they were compelled to fire. Now, if one is not at that particular place at that moment, one can't make such statements, and you cannot make such statements unless you have investigated the whole matter. So that is premature, that statement, because a group of people on a pickup truck, if they've been asked to stop and they haven't stopped, then the least you can do is to hit at their tires, to shoot their tires. The vehicle will immediately come to a stop, and then you can deal with the situation. You don't just fire indiscriminately.
There's a second step to the concern around that statement, Patricia, because it seems that having said that, the Home Ministry or indeed the defense that is being focused on in this particular incident might actually get away without any penal consequences. Do you think that that is the biggest fear right now amongst people in Nagaland, that this entire narrative, if you may, is being set up to ensure that there is a safe exit for any of the soldiers involved in this particular incident?
Look, this is not the first time that soldiers have been, let free from. They have not been convicted for their excesses. In Manipur, there were 1,528 cases that that were taken up. They were taken up right to the level of the Supreme Court,
Yeah.
but then nothing has happened. The fake encounters remain fake encounters, and the army will always take cover of the AFSPA to say that we suspected that these were probably terrorists. And the AFSPA allows them that impunity, that any suspect can be short of saying fired at, that they can deal with anyone they believe is a suspected terrorist, and they can get away with it. This has been the stand taken by the army, and they've very openly also said that if you do not allow the use of AFSPA, then we cannot be brought into these spaces. The question is, I think we need to also discuss this loudly now. Why do we still need the armed forces which are trained to fight the enemy across the borders? Why do we need them to fight our own people? And why only the Northeast and Jammu and Kashmir? You have rebels in central India, in Telangana and other places. You've had, the left wing insurgencies. You haven't used AFSPA there. Why these double standards?
I want to discuss AFSPA in much more detail, Patricia, but I also want to address something that has been happening in parallel, and there is an important meeting around that. The members of the government's core committee on the Naga political issues are meeting with Assam Chief Minister Himanta Biswa. What do you think might be the ramifications of these events on those peace talks, on that accord that has been in the works for quite a few years now?
Look, I think we really need to analyze the peace talks objectively. What is being talked about in these so-called peace talks, and who are you talking to? You're talking to one armed outfit, the NSCN-IM. Now, why is it that the government of India is not listening to the voices of the people of Nagaland? They've written repeatedly to the Home Minister, to the present Prime Minister, saying that we are so tired of the gun culture. We are tired of extortion. We want to live, the life that other people are living in this country. We don't want to be under the shadow of the gun or under the shadow of the militant outfits. They've written, and they comprise the entire populace of Nagaland, because the Gaumbura Association means that, it includes all the people of Nagaland, their voices. This, they have written repeatedly saying, we understand that you are in talks with the NSCN-IM, and that you have agreed on certain issues, and there are other issues that are, ticklish issues that you haven't been able to resolve. So conclude all those matters that you have agreed on, and please resolve the rest by peaceful means. Why is the government of India not responding to that call? It's a desperate call, because people want to live, a life where they can conduct their businesses without having a sword over their heads. So unfortunately, some of us in the media also have given too much space to the NSCN-IM without really understanding their locus standi in Nagaland.
At this point, though, Patricia, the NSC and IM has said that they're going to hold internal meetings to decide on the further course of things. What do you think might be the more likely outcome at this point, given what you're painting as the situation and the mood and the anger and betrayal that Nagaland is feeling? Do you think this is likely going to stall for a while?
Yeah, it will have to stall, because see, we have to understand how the people of Nagaland view the NSCN-IM. They don't consider the NSCN-IM as accommodating their voices, because the NSCN-IM is led by a Tangkhul Naga who comes from Manipur. He is concerned about the future of the Naga people in Manipur. So the demand for a flag, the demand for a constitution is actually untenable, because where will you fly that flag? You may be able to fly that flag in Nagaland. You won't be able to fly that flag in Manipur, because the agreement is that there will be no territorial arrangement or rearrangement. The Nagas of Manipur will have to continue to live in Manipur, maybe with some special concessions as being given to the Bodos under the Bodo Territorial Council. Mm. So, and this, that has been the contentious issue that prevents the resolution of the peace talks.
I want to go back to the issue of AFSPA, Patricia, and to the point you made about those cases that were pending. I mean, in 2017, we're talking quite a few years back, the Supreme Court set up that Extrajudicial Execution Families Association, but reports seem to indicate that In the last 3 years, there have been no hearings that have been held, on that. How deep would you say the trust deficit is at this point between the region and what they feel or fear the center is doing, or rather not doing?
See, I think in March 2021, March this year, the CBI, which was asked to go into 14 of these cases, as a test, they came back to the Supreme Court and said, we have no evidence to support the allegation that these were fake encounters. So, I mean, if you are going to ask the CBI to look into these cases, they are also uniformed personnel. You need a completely independent agency which has the trust of people to go into these cases. Giving another uniform, now for instance, this case in Mon, you're asking some general to look into this issue. What are you trying to say? Is the general going to indict his own people? So there's a huge trust deficit between what is called Delhi and the region. Uh, you know, I think that by and large, we are being patronized because, okay, you're a part of the country, you're in the periphery, we are willing to concede this much to you and no more. That sort of thinking is there because if you look at the development vacuum in this part of the world, I'm not saying that those who govern the states in this region are free from blame. A lot of money has been poured into the region, but there is a kind of a collusion between those who rule the state and those at the center, not to seek accountability from, for the funds that are spent in this region. As a result, there's too much of this. You look at the militants also. Without the patronage of governments, I don't think they would be able to operate the way they are doing as at the moment.
It's also not the first time, as you said, Patricia. I mean, calls for repealing AFSPA have been consistent. They've happened through the years. They've happened across the region. Manipur has asked for it. Nagaland has asked for it. This time, it looks like it is across the political spectrum. The chief minister himself said, this is the time. Agatha Sangma said, let's address the elephant in the room. What do you think might be the outcome of the event because of the size of it, because of the tragedy that occurred? Do you think that this time there may be a more serious discussion about AFSPA, or are your expectations low?
What has happened yesterday, for instance, that helicopter crash, what I imagine is that will then take, it will take away a lot of media space, and this whole issue will be pushed perhaps to page 3 and then out of media memory. So the media is so important in flagging these issues and keeping them alive. Yesterday, the lone member of parliament from Nagaland, Mr. Kenye, was not even allowed to speak on this issue. And he was given only 3 minutes. After that, his mic was silenced. What is it? What are we trying to say then? That people from this region don't even have a right to speak on behalf of the people of the region, of the people of the state, of the families of those that have been mercilessly killed. So, and then even when Agatha Sangma tried to raise this issue of revocation of the AFSPA, she was told repeatedly to please stop speaking and conclude her speech. All these do not augur very well for democracy in India.
What do you think the political ramifications within Nagaland might be of this event, Patricia? The Wire was speaking with Mon's district president of the BJP, Nyawang Konyak, who was quite vocal about his anger, who also made the point that no one from the BJP had actually visited the bereaved families. This is a tenuous position for the current government to be in, is it not? Where there is so much anger against a particular party that they are in alliance with.
Yes. In fact, there have been voices clamoring for the chief ministers of Nagaland and Meghalaya to walk out of the BJP alliance. There have been very strong voices. So I don't know how these chief ministers will respond because, the problem with this region is all the chief ministers feel that they need to be in the same page as the ruling party in Delhi, because they need the funds, because it's easier to deal with a friendly government at the center. And so you're actually, you're belittling the idea of federalism. If we are a federal nation, then the center has a bounden duty to assist the states in whatever way possible. They can't be looking at which are the friendly states and which are the unfriendly ones. So this will be work in progress. The politicians will always weigh the pros and cons of walking out of the BJP or continuing to work with them. They'll make all kinds of excuses. It so much depends on the voices of the people from this region. And these voices, over the years, because of militancy, have been muted. People are so afraid to speak. The people in Nagaland have been traumatized for over 50, 60 years. They haven't learned to speak up. It is only now with the coming of social media that a lot of things have been expressed on social media, actually. Because social media allows you some amount of anonymity.
Sections of AFSPA, Patricia, also indicate that armed forces must act in cooperation with district administration, not as an independent body. And in this particular MON operation, local law enforcement agencies have been quite categorical about the fact that they were unaware of the operation. Given the sense of the law enforcement agencies and the people speaking so clearly out against this, what do you think could be the consequences if there is literally zero done about the AFSPA conversation? And as an extension of that, what do you think are the 1 or 2 or 3 things that must be done immediately to at least instill some kind of confidence in the people?
I think immediately there must be a committee formed of all the chief ministers of the northeastern states. And this, let's face facts. This country should have raised a counter-insurgency elite force to deal with internal security. It hasn't done it for 60 years. Then, to be fair to the army, you're training people to be brutal towards the enemy, and then you're sending them into a counterinsurgency area and telling them to apply certain rules, to go by these norms. How can it's very confusing. It's kind of very schizophrenic for the army personnel to be doing 2 different things simultaneously. In their minds, they're trained to fight the enemy. That's a difficult thing to undo. It's a difficult thing to deconstruct. So they go there, and unfortunately for us in this country, we have racial differences also. So they come into a territory where people look so different culturally, behaviorally, we are different. So I don't know whether they think we're also the enemy in their mind's construction, whether they think we are the enemy because we do not look like them. So the them and us is there. We look at the Indian army and we say, and in Nagaland, people speak about India all the time, they as if they are not part of India. They speak of Delhi. This region is actually still work in progress as far as nation building is concerned. It's still very difficult for us to feel that this is the nation that belongs to us, because we always seem to be at the mercy of Delhi. Everything is very Delhi-centric.
For observers, Patricia, and we are only observers, because neither do we have the historical depth nor the lived experience that you have for the region. It seems like there is a peak and trough situation in terms of how militant activities move in the northeast. There's a sudden spurt, then it's quiet. I was intrigued by data I was looking at, which is from the Ministry of Home Affairs themselves from last year, saying that there has been a big cool down in terms of the militant attacks. There's been a big cool down in terms of civilian killings, in terms of security force killings. And then you have incidents that seem to have moved in a cluster fashion of themselves. The ambush of the Assam Rifles convoy that happened in November. There seem to be more and more incidents that are cropping up. Are you getting the sense, as a keen lived observer of the region, that things are getting quite entangled again? Things are getting quite messy again. Things are getting quite vulnerable again in the region.
See, we have to also remember that this region shares a border of 1643 kilometers with Myanmar. Yeah. Myanmar is highly disturbed. And then we have this free movement regime, which allows, it's a pact signed between India and Burma in the 1935s or so, and renewed subsequently, where people from both sides of the border, because of their ethnic affiliations, they can move 16 kilometers into each other's borders. Now, over the years, the free movement regime has turned into a free pass for weapons, for drugs. In fact, I think just day before yesterday, 500 crore rupees of drugs were confiscated because of that movement. So this free movement regime allows a lot of leeway for militant organizations, and many of them are now in the other side of the border. The Indian so-called militant outfits from Nagaland, from Manipur, from Assam, they're all on the other side of the border. So I'm not sure how India is dealing with this, because on the one hand, it's also a very, very difficult terrain to police. So you have during COVID, obviously people were dealing with the disease, so they wouldn't have had time to become militant or to carry on militant activities. But as far as I know, in Nagaland, the extortion has never stopped. The extortion by the NSC and IM and other fringe outfits has never stopped. Neither has it stopped in Manipur. So this is an ongoing process. The problem is that nobody has been seriously thinking of a policy on how to deal with this very difficult situation. It is a very difficult situation, and I don't say it's easy. It needs different kind of handling, which I don't think the Home Minister of this country or the Home Ministry has time and passion for.
What seems to have emerged as an additional challenge over the last couple of months and recent years, though, Patricia, you mentioned the role of the media, is this increasing clamp down on media that has a dissenting or critical point of view, where there are legal notices or court action slapped against someone who writes a Facebook post or makes a comment or writes an editorial. Journalists visiting from Delhi in Tripura were detained for reporting on what they saw and heard and were writing about. Is that becoming, an increasingly large sort of overhanging threat for those who are trying to talk about the issues and talk about what's happening in the region?
It has. See, of the 7 states that make up this northeastern region, Tripura, Manipur, Assam have become very, very difficult for journalists because they are all ruled by BJP governments. Yeah. Sadly, the chief minister of Manipur was once a journalist himself. So I don't understand how he now goes after every journalist that critiques his government. And he's filing sedition cases right, left, and center. I also see that the journalist fraternity in this country has not come together to sort of, enable us to take up this as a collective issue. So we are all dealing with all these cases at the individual level. Of course, there are some NGOs, some groups here, there who say they will help us. There are some human rights lawyers that try and help us and take up our cases pro bono. But by and large, we are dealing with all this ourselves. Sometimes even our own media houses do not stand with us when we put up a Facebook post, because they say that's not part of their brief.
Sounds familiar. Happening across many parts of India as well, Patricia. Very intensely so for you. One final question. Given what you're reading as the mood across the land at this point, what do you think might be the consequences of no action happening on AFSPA, given how heightened the mood is, and at this point it seems like it is a really raw spot. If this is just ignored by the centre and indeed the state government, what do you think the consequences of that might be over the months to come?
What will be the consequences? It's so difficult to predict human behavior. We've seen it in the past. When the media doesn't continuously rake up these issues, they tend to be forgotten, because who is giving voice to these issues if not the media? And if we look at the media in Nagaland, it's not a very robust media. It doesn't do a lot of questioning. My friend Mona Lisa Chankija, who edits the Nagaland page, did some of that questioning, and then she was summoned by the NSC and IM to their headquarters. So, it's you're either fighting the state forces or the non-state forces. So people in Nagaland and in other states that are like Manipur, which are still very insurgency affected, they are in the middle of these two forces, state and non-state. They're hemmed in between, and there is no breathing space actually. So if at all we want to have some outcome, and in a very, I don't want to call it an opportunity, but what happened at MON on Saturday should be the opportunity for us to look at this AFSPA more intensely and say that we do not want this act once and for all. Let it be revoked. Because you're looking at 55,000 security personnel in Manipur alone. I mean, just imagine that size. Where will that size be deployed if they're taken away from Manipur?
Yeah, and to go from a point where data in last year showed that the situation had eased off to a point now where there are reports that the army might look at increasing its presence. It really looks like a lot of wrong turns have been taken.
It looks diabolical actually.
Patricia, thank you so much. I really appreciate you joining in. We promise to keep tracking the story, even if anyone else will or will not. And I hope that there is some resolution to what was really a tragic incident. Thank you so much for joining in.
Thank you. Thank you.
Get a sneak peek of exclusive content before everyone else for channel members only. Memberships start at ₹89. Hit the join button below.